wanted to congratulate you on your trip to Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
for the inauguration. Yeah. What was that like?
It was wonderful. It's the most wonderful thing I've done in my whole life.
Really?
It was like having a dream come true. I've worked so long toward this type of thing, and it happened in my lifetime. It was just stupendous, and that was why I made such an effort to go. I thought it would really be something, and it was. It was really wonderful.
When you talk about it being like a dream, can you think back to a time in your life when you ever imagined it possible that we would have an African American president?
No, I never thought that far. I never did. But I thought we'd have some equality. When we go and apply for a job, they would compare, I recommend against the other one, and they would hire the best person. I figured that way, and that we would be treated, equally, and that is happening. And back then was really a good show of it. There were people from all the countries, and they were there just like family.
Yeah.
And
Now you sat pretty close.
oh yeah, 40 yards from him, right, kind of looking right up at her.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
And what do you remember about just being there and about his speech?
Well, just being there was so wonderful, and being that close to him was even greater than that. And I believe what he says. When he first was listed as someone to run for president in the beginning, I said, that's my man. I
Really?
want him. He's the right one, the right time. And everybody thought it was a big joke. They laughed at me and they said, you don't know nothing about him. I said, that's okay. I got this feeling. And then he made it. So
What was it about him, do you think, that made you think that he was your man?
Well, he's such an intelligent person, and he's been planning for this, putting himself in line for it. And he has people that thought he was right, too. And that helped a lot. But for people like me and like people he went into towns, and he convinced them, too, he was the right person. He talked about stuff we could understand. He came from our level and he moved himself up. And it says to the kids, my father told me on his deathbed, you can be anything you want to be. Just make up your mind what you want and stick to it. And if the kids will do that, if they plan what they want to do and do it, they can do it. And he showed them that they could do it, see.
He's a good role model. Huh?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
And he did it, and most people think they can do it, too. They can do
Yeah.
what they want to do.
Now, you are 87 years old. I hope you don't mind my saying that.
Yeah.
And so when I think about a lot of the interviews I heard on TV with people who were there, people who were African American, they would cry and they'd say, I wish my grandparents could be here to see this. I wish my father could be here to see this. Why do you think so many black people felt that they wished that?
Because of the situation they lived in. They were so set aside, and they were always the last hired and the first fired. And they lived in a portion of town that nobody else would live in. We were kind of like second-class citizens all this time, see. And we had hope. And our folks really struggled during that time to get us to be where we are now. And that's what I've done for my kids. My kids have done pretty good.
Yeah.
They've done pretty good. And they feel good about themselves, and they feel like they could do whatever they want to do.
Right.
And that's all I wanted, is them to have the opportunity for whatever they wanted to do. And my dream was that the equality portion, where they be treated, the children would not be, set aside in schools, and would not be discriminated against, and would have an equal opportunity for jobs and
Now
stuff.
can you think of times in your life, or maybe I can ask it this way, can you think of when you first realized as a child that being of a different color made you, as you called it, like a second-class citizen, that you were treated differently? When did that first dawn on you?
Well, we lived on a farm. My father, fortunately, bought a farm for us, so we were not sharecroppers. We stayed on our farm all the time. Well, my grandfather did the same, but my father did it for us. And our farm bordered the white farm, and we saw the kids there. and we saw them get on the bus in the morning, ride to school, and we had to walk. And the bus driver would hit all of the mud holes and everything and spatter us. He would make us get off of the road and everything. And you know, that's when it began for me. I knew we were being treated different. And they went to a large school, and we went to a one-room school.
Mm-hmm.
That was an advantage in the one-room school, in that if you listened, you could hear what was going on, and you learned above your age limit. See, they would teach one class, and then they go to another one, and if you would listen, you could benefit from all of it.
Mm-hmm.
See, and so at that time we kind of accepted it because it was a learning process. But afterwards, we wanted differently. See, I went to Prairie View, and Prairie View at the time I went had a special building for black people. And we had the big building for the white people and special one, another one for black people. I had one of my nieces who suffered from polio, and she went to school there, and she became over the secretarial pool. And she worked in Prairie View 47 years, and when she retired, I went home to be there because I thought it was wonderful, because I went to Prairie View too. And she said, and they kept talking about how far we've come, and they still have that building.
I had heard a story about you when you were a young woman, when you had a baby who was,
Mm-hmm.
your little boy was about a year old or 18 months,
Mm-hmm.
and you were trying to get on a bus. What? And you couldn't because you were black.
Yeah. Well, at that time, you know, they had different sections for whites and blacks, and the whites always got on first. You had to wait and let them all get on, and then you were allowed on, and soldiers were allowed on. At that time, they had soldiers, black soldiers, and they could ride it. But if there wasn't room on it, you couldn't ride, and you had to wait for the next bus. So my brother was in the service, and he came home on a furlough or whatever they give him. And so I went home. I lived in West Texas at that time, and my folks were down out of Houston. So I had to cross the state to get home. And I took the baby and went, and we did okay going, but coming back, we couldn't get on the bus. There was no seats. And the third bus came, and the baby was getting tired, you know. And this soldier came up, and he said, "Where are you going?" And I told him, he said, "Oh, that's 40 miles from where I'm going." And I said, "Oh, that's wonderful." And he said, "Let's travel as a family, and we'll just bluff them."
Because why would that help you?
Because he'd take the baby on, and then they would have to let me on with the baby.
Because he's a soldier.
Just a soldier.
Right.
Just a soldier. And he took the baby and got on, you know, and he closed the door behind him, and he said, "You can't do that. That's my wife. And I've got to get back to the base, and she's got to take the baby." So he reluctantly opened the door and said, "You got to stand in the aisle. There's no seats." And there weren't any seats. That was true. But not one person offered me a seat. They couldn't, because they would get put off, you know. And then after I stood up for a while, I took my bag and sat on it in the aisle, because it took longer than we had thought, because we were supposed to go another 4 hours, but we had to go 6 because he had to do a circle to pick somebody up or put somebody off. And when we got up there, and he got off of the bus and gave me the baby, and I got his seat.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the inauguration again, if you don't mind. Now, a lot of people, like me, I watched it on TV, but it was very important to you to be there in person. Why was that?
Well, I just thought it would be one time that you could do something first class, you know. Just be there. Just let him know that you appreciate where he was and what he'd done and what he'd accomplished, you know. And we didn't get to shake his hand or get anywhere near him except seeing him right up there, but it was okay. We were there, and he knew we were there. And that was what was so important to me, so he knew we supported him.